hasn't made that official, right?
Yeah, the Tamus nickname actually came from Drew Brees, of all people. He's really good at coming up with the nicknames for his guys. And it's actually probably a really fitting nickname because you're going to see a combination of both out there from what I can gather. I feel like for a game like this, let's just start with what the Falcons are preparing for, because you have to figure, they're trying to find out as much information as they possibly can so they can prepare their defense. And I can tell you from talking to them yesterday, their defense is preparing to see Jameis start with Taysom Hill in just a lot of packages. We know how they use him as a weapon in all different parts of their offense. And, just circling back to when Jameis Winston was signed, Zubin, I remember having a conversation right after the signing, actually, with Sean Payton about why, because granted, it was a good deal for them in terms of that contract. It just didn't make any sense to me. Why would he bring Jameis on when, we saw Jameis have so many struggles? And Payton didn't think that a lot of the struggles really were going to fell on Jameis. He felt like he could fix a lot of those, and he was almost invigorated and energized by this idea that he had this young quarterback, fairly young quarterback, like he could help him minimize those turnovers that I think Sean Payton has proved over the years. Whenever you plug in a quarterback that's not Drew Brees, they've been really efficient. And I covered them last year when Teddy Bridgewater took over. I covered them for all 5 of those games when they went 5 straight. And I will say this is what makes the Saints locker room one of the strongest and best, and Key, I know you probably know about them, is they are able to step up in the spaces that they need to when they know their guys are down. And while Teddy did a good job, and Teddy's so well liked, that the entire locker room changed when Teddy stepped in a great way, and they were playing better in some cases actually than when I'd seen them with Drew Brees. So now you have a situation where you have Jameis Winston, you're going to have Taysom Hill out there, where they're familiar with Taysom. I expect these guys to step up.
A little bit different, obviously this game, the Atlanta Falcons are not preparing for the Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston. Who they're preparing for is Sean Payton. And Diana was speaking to that. They're preparing for Sean Payton because he knows what to do with them. And speaking of preparing for somebody, Alvin Kamara, I think I got that right. Did I get that right?
Indeed.
Okay, Alvin Kamara, not Kamara, didn't practice yesterday. Can you give me a little insight on what's going on with him?
Yeah, so Al dealt with some injuries this season. We saw him deal with actually a lot of injuries last season. So he's been really conservative with the amount of practice. But I did speak with people yesterday in New Orleans, and they said this isn't going to be an issue. Alvin's going to be out there. They're going to need Alvin. Obviously, we know it's an all-hands-on-deck situation here without Drew Brees being there. But this isn't something concerned from the football fan perspective, but also from fantasy football players out there who I know are probably staring at every single update on his health. Alvin Kamara should be good to go on Sunday against the Falcons at 1.
Diana, let's stay in the division. Teddy Bridgewater is dealing with some knee soreness. What can you tell us about his availability for Sunday's game against the Lions?
So, Key, you know how it goes with injuries. You can talk to 10 different people, including the person injured, and you get a feel. You get different feels from everybody, right? Because the player always wants to play. So yesterday when I just talked to Carolina a little bit just to get a feel, I kept getting the same answer, actually, which was this is day to day. In fact, the quarterbacks didn't even know who was going to be the starter and who would be the starter if Teddy can't go. So, when you hear Chris Mortensen report early in the week that this isn't one of these situations where they're playing coy, so the Lions don't get the advantage. This is a straight up Teddy. They're checking in with Teddy every single day. And Teddy himself is checking in, making sure mentally he feels good. His movements in practice, he's obviously meeting with the trainers and going over things with the coach. But that whole quarterback room isn't sure who's starting just yet. What we should know today by the end of the afternoon that what they're definitely going to do. But as of now, they do not know who's going to be starting on Sunday against the Lions.
You're talking about that quarterback room. I know Will Greer from West Virginia, but who is P.J. Walker? Can you give us a little bit of insight on these guys?
I'm so glad you asked me that. So I covered the XFL, which feels like 17 years ago, but it was like 6 months ago. And PJ Walker, and you're going to laugh when I say this, but I mean this, the headline in Houston, which is where he played, he was on the Houston Roughnecks, the headline after 3 games was PJ Walker is the Patrick Holmes of the XFL. His ability his vision, the chemistry he was able to build with his receivers as quickly as he was able to do was so impressive. And the only reason why I think he actually can make this jump into being a starter and having success, which we've seen him out on the field a little bit this season when Teddy's been hurt, is he played with Matt Rule, Carolina's head coach, when he was at Temple. And I remember talking to PJ during the XFL season, before he even joined Carolina, and he told me his number one mentor, the person he spoke to every day, was Matt Rule. And then the XFL collapses, free agency starts, and then who winds up on the roster? PJ Walker with Matt Rule. So if there's anyone that's going to be at least comfortable running an offense that Matt Rule is running, it's going to be PJ Walker. So I don't think this is a situation where Carolina fans have to jump off a cliff if Teddy's not in there. I think PJ Walker has the ability to do it.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, presented by Progressive Insurance. Diana Rossini joins us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. This is my first reset because Key always does resets. I'm glad I finally got one in.
Boom.
Diana, let me ask you about the last time the Titans and the Ravens played was last year's playoffs. A lot of injuries on both sides. Both teams are trying to find themselves here. Tell us about what you think about those two.
Well, this is these teams are a little different this year compared to last year. Let's just talk about the superficial stuff of just momentum, right? Do you guys remember how hot the Titans were last year? They had just beaten New England in the wild card. It was the first round of the playoffs. The Ravens were coming off a week of rest. And Lamar Jackson, to his credit, admitted openly a couple months ago that they completely overlooked the Titans, which I think all of us kind of look at each other of like, how could you possibly overlook a team that was playing as well as they were last season? But that's what they did, and that Titans defense did a really good job of containing Lamar, keeping him, in the middle of the field, or at least, keeping him outside the numbers was really what they did best, because they knew how dangerous he was with his legs. But I think this time around, this is a kind of game where Derrick Henry has the opportunity to really explode. And the injuries is definitely going to be the storyline, guys, headed into this, because both teams are dealing with significant. I mean, I think the Titans had 11 players not practice yesterday. It's insane. And the Ravens are dealing with it as well. So you're going to see some unfamiliar faces out there. But in terms of the game plan against each other, I think you're going to see a lot of similarity from what we saw last season.
No doubt about it. I mean, they ended the Brady era in New England, then they ended the Ravens run prematurely. We'll see what happens on Sunday. Diana, safe travels to the Bayou, and we'll talk to you next week.
Safe.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Di.
Great stuff.
Say, man.
What?
Why you lie to the people?
What do you mean
that's
lie?
your first read? You done read that thing 3 times.
I'm just saying,
That wasn't your first time.
That's your thing.
Don't send that narrative to people as if I'm hogging all the reads.
I watch you reset interviews 3 times during one interview.
Because that's what you're supposed to do, but to give the people in the car an idea of who the hell you're talking to, because they're just getting into the car.
All right.
Let's do one more of those by going from A to Z.
From Dallas to D.C. and everywhere in between. From A to Z.
Jay, if it's okay with you, I'll handle this one. Is it okay?
You got it, brother. You got it. You got it.
From A to Z is brought to you by Redbox. Redbox has new movies at the box and streaming on demand. Don't miss Unhinged, starring Russell Crowe. Visit redbox.com for all the ways to watch. This is just a one-off here, fellas, from A to Z. We said we were going from Dallas to D.C. Let's start in Dallas. Andy Dalton admitting he had a double dose. Concussion followed by COVID. Back to back. He says he's not sure how he got the coronavirus, but his wife and one of his sons also tested positive. Thankfully, 2 of his other kids did not. Here's Dalton on the experience.
COVID, it hit me hard the first day that I had it, and then it gradually started feeling better. And then by the end of it, I was ready to get out of quarantine and get back up here.
1 minute to go. One big situation for the Cowboys. Will they have him against the Vikings on Sunday? But first, wow, scary health situation.
No, both. I mean, concussions are nothing to play with, and then obviously you double that with COVID. I mean, I didn't even know. This is the first I heard of it.
Yeah. Remember, he just started practicing Monday after 3 weeks off.
Yeah, but this is the first. Did you hear about it anywhere?
No, I didn't hear about it. I was talking to Adam Silver about this tonight at the draft, and this is what the NBA gets worried about. Kids still going to school, them coming home, being around their parents going into work. Like, that's crazy that can happen so quickly.
No question about it.